Welcome to Take of the Week, Square Take's official YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Here we're going to tell you about everything that's happening in Africa and indeed the world around. But not just that, we're also going to tell you how to feel about it, which I think is the most exciting part. So stay tuned. Good. So, I think there's been a lot of talk. In fact, not a lot of talk, and rightfully so, about Burkina Faso cutting ties with France. And the truth is, when I first heard the story, my initial reaction is, and so? And that's not because I was surprised. That's not because I didn't see it coming, or I don't think it's of consequence in this instance. I do, but I was actually surprised that they hadn't done that earlier. And if you've been following everything happening in the Sahel, everything from the coup d'etats to, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso ganging up and then telling France to put the hell out. And then obviously, in a twist, in a very interesting twist. And if it went to the US, it would have hurt more, all right? But certainly the US felt it, because wherever you see Russia, you can almost guarantee that the US is somewhere sobbing. But if you've been following the whole story, you will know that these guys seized power. That's all of the military leaders of these countries. They seized power with the singular intention of, and if that's a term, of defrenching their respective countries. And so making sure that they were removing every speck and trace of French culture, French influence, French societal gravitas from their countries. I think in Mali, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was last year, they actually banned French as a national language. So French is no longer, as of today, considered a national language in Mali. I had Malian friends when I was growing up. They all spoke French. Obviously, we all grew up in the Francophone, region, and so maybe there's that. But they didn't speak French like we did. They spoke French with a Malian accent. I lived in Cameroon, and so that's you can tell someone who doesn't have the Cameroonian accent, and these accents are distinct. But anyways, and so Burkina Faso says that they don't want to have to deal with France anymore, so they're cutting ties. And I think the obvious question is, why? And if you ask anybody who knows anything about the story between these two, the next obvious question will be, why not? Right? And here's what the Minister of Communication said, and I'm trying to quote what he said, and I'm going to read it for you. He said, and I quote, that maintaining the bond with France would technically allow France to act against the national interests of Burkina Faso. So basically he's saying that, look, if we keep being friends, you're going to snitch on me, boy. Snitches get stitches, but because I can't beat you, I'll just stay as far away from you as I can, which makes sense. Because again, if you consider this against the backdrop of the fact that Burkina Faso has actually been hurt by France in the past, post-independence or post-colonialism, it all makes sense. Ever heard of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary guy who was supposed to take Burkina Faso to make Rwanda out of Burkina Faso, or make Morocco out of Burkina Faso? And you could have made a case here. I think very certainly he was on that path. He was lynched. He was plotted. He was president. He was leader. And then it is clear now that France did have a hand, in fact, in his death. They actually sponsored his rival at the time to go sniff him out. And that's how he died. And people like Thomas Sankara, they come around once every, I don't know. They come around like Messi. It's like you see them, and then that's it. You're seeing them, and then your son won't see them. It's just your grandson. So only your grandson in his 40s can see someone else like that. So in his 40s will start to see someone else like that. You've seen it for you and your son, right? Or you and your immediate offspring. So That's the kind of person that Thomas Sankara was. That he was sniffed out of the picture, and so objectively, it makes sense for Burkina Faso to come out and say, "Well, we don't want to have, have anything to do with you guys anymore." I don't see what's wrong with it. But if that was not enough, if all of that is not enough in your opinion as to why Burkina Faso should cut ties, it's very important for you to know that they are the last in a very long list of people that have, or countries in this case, that have requested unanimously for a divorce. Mali was the first to say, it's not you, it's me. Maybe we should figure our ways apart from each other. They did that in 2022. Central African Republic. It's not, and for these countries, it wasn't so much a question of cutting ties. It's not that they cut ties with them. It's that they requested France's troops or French troops to exit the country. And the way I see it, if you and I are living together and it's my house that you're in, and I say to you, yeah, I want to renovate the room you're in, right? Or I'm trying to move some of my stuff into your room just as an excuse for you to leave the place. I'm cutting ties. I don't want you in there anymore. Having you in my space is as close to a tie as can get. And so if I don't want you around, I technically, there's the sense where there's the angle where it looks like, I want colonial, what do you call it now? I want I want military independence. So I want my military to operate independent of yours. But that's not true, because most of these countries, the moment they did that, they invited Russia. They said, Russia, come in, support us. And so the idea was never about whether they needed a prop from someone else. They always did. It was a question of, thank you next. I mean, Ariana Grande would do it better, would make that rendition sound a little better than I did. But it was a thank you next situation. And these countries unanimously said, well, we don't want to have you around. And they brought Russia in and said, well, we want to have you around. We don't want the other guy. And so if Mali did that in 2022, the Central African Republic did that 2022, Niger did that 2023, Chad did that 2024, Senegal did that 2025, Ivory Coast did that last year. If everybody around you says, it's not you, it's me, but I think it's you. I think it's you. I think they're just being polite. I think they don't want to be upfront about the way they see the relationship evolving, but I think it's you. And so that's 6 countries now. 6! Imagine having 6 exes dump you within 4 years. I know you're good. I know you have great manners, great character. I know you brush your teeth, you've got great hygiene. I know you've got a bright future, but 6 exes in 4 years? Even no offense, but even Hamas, even Hamas in 2023 didn't run through leaders like that. It's like they didn't even have that turnover rate. And so what that tells me is that there really must be something to you that nobody likes. And to prove to you that it's really a case of France having lost leverage with these countries, well, guess what they did? This was in May. They organized an Anglophone summit, or an Anglophone conference. I'm sorry, I'll get the name. I'm not sure what the name is. I can't remember the name anymore, but they held it in Kenya. And essentially, Macron told as many English-speaking presidents in Africa as he could, that, hey guys, I've just been evicted. If any of you has a place to stay, I can put up some part of the rent. Which makes sense. It's a reasonable offer. Come on. It's like, that's the basic. All right. But the question is, why are you going to take someone who can, I agree, put up their part of the rent, but blast loud music, or comes home late, or comes home with visitors indiscreetly, and it's like it's not very security conscious of who they're bringing home, the person is a risk. And that's kind of what the issue is about here. But nevertheless, it's what it is. So Burkina Faso and France, they've officially sealed the divorce. Now, no alimony, I hope. No settlements. But like good co-parents, they're organizing scheduled visits for the kids. And so what that looks like is for any Burkinabe who wants to visit France, they may have to make the trip to Ivory Coast, for example, and then, get their visas there. If there's a French citizen who wants to travel to Burkina Faso, they may have to go to, I don't know, Norway, Russia, certainly, right? And then go into the embassy in Moscow, and then get their visas. But then I think it's a good thing, right? I think it's the reasonable. I think it's the reasonable thing to do. It's like, I don't want to deal with you anymore, but I don't want the kids to suffer for it. And that's textbook co-parenting. And I allowed the both parties for that. I think they did the right thing. So it's a deal that works. I think both of them were ready to move on from each other. France, maybe not so much. I mean, they said they were going to assess retaliatory measures. I'm not exactly sure how you retaliate against someone who kicks you out of the house. Like, what are you going to do? Burn the whole house down? That's exactly why they let you out. That's exactly why they asked you out in the first place. Like I said, it's a good thing. They took it the good way, and they ensured that, the people didn't suffer. And so that's a good thing. So here's what's interesting. So today is July the 1st, which technically would be a day after the protests happened in South Africa. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what, the final reports from that are, but as of now, my understanding is that those protests were largely without fatal incidents, largely absent of fatal incidents, because they could have gone worse. And if you've been following this story for a while now, I think it's been in development for at least 6 weeks now, or even longer. A lot more violence has happened. I'd say it takes a lot to chase a man or to chase a woman out of their business place. It's like, I mean, if I'm in my business, if I'm in my boutique, for example, and you came to me and said you wanted me to leave, you would have to invoke Odin or Thor, and then you would have to get some lightning, right, and flash in my eyes and blind me, and then walk me by the hand outside of the place. That's how hard it would be. And so for that to happen, where people actually left the place and abandoned their shops and abandoned their boutiques and abandoned their warehouses and abandoned their workplaces, that tells you that aside the visual reports of violence, there was actually probably a lot more going on there. And so the first thing I'd like to say is props to the South African government for making sure that the big day, June 30th, was as uneventful as it could get. It's like, we didn't hear anything crazy, and it has been crazy. But then that doesn't mean we're going to let them off the hook. We're not going to let them off the hook, because if you look at the story in detail, and if you pay attention to what's going on, I think there was someone who explained to me that 50% or 90% rather of divorce cases, no matter how they're framed by both parties, no matter how they're dressed up, no matter how they're cooked up, no matter how they're garnished, it's all about money. Don't get it twisted. It's all about money. It's either one party isn't making enough or isn't putting down enough, or it's money. And I think that by and large, that's the problem here. Because if you look at the videos of all of these protests, where all these marches, where all these mutinies, where all these demonstrations are happening, you will find that you'll discover that they're not in the bougie areas. They're not. And this is not even an attempt at classism. They're just not. It's always somewhere dark with shady lightning in the middle of the day. So it's like the sun isn't even shining that brightly there. Probably because there's stuff on the roof that shouldn't be there. Some place that looks like, the government is trying to get a discount from the cleaning company working there, and the cleaning company just isn't agreeing to the discount. It's always the places that look like the ghetto where you find these demonstrations happening. I didn't see any demonstrations happening in downtown Cape Town, or in Port Elizabeth, or in Durban, or in Pretoria, or even in the metropolis in Johannesburg, the city center, the nice areas, the business centers. It was just the outskirts. And what that tells you is that no South African living in the nice places is leaving their houses to go to the places that are not so nice to protest. It's the people who are in the not so nice places that are protesting. And logic, by extension, demands that you agree that if people in not so nice places are protesting, it means that they are unhappy with the way they're living. And that's something they've said. The only problem here is that they're attributing it falsely, wrongly, erroneously, misleadingly so, to undocumented foreigners. And it makes sense. It's like, where the hell else do you expect to see an undocumented foreigner? I mean, if he has money to, get his papers or their papers straight, I know for sure he's not staying in the slums. I mean, if he has money to rent a nice place, or alternatively, if they have money to rent a nice place in a city center where, where Uber is accessible, where it's just sky rises, and, it's not spazas. It's not spazas. They go to take a lot, right? They go to, what's the name again? Is it Nappers? I mean, I missed the point, but the point I'm trying to make is the people that are good are in good places, and people who are complaining are in not so good places. And there's only one person to blame, it's the government. And so this is the equivalent of any mutiny or any demonstration or any protest that you would find about, let's say, low unemployment. So if unemployment, by the way, is unbelievably high in South Africa. The US federal, I mean, most African countries do not have reliable unemployment numbers, and I don't have them here, but I have that of the US. It's 4.5% as of June. Correct me. 4.5%. In South Africa, it's 33%. That's the unemployment rate. And so these are people who spend their time protesting largely because they've got nothing else to do. They don't have anything else to do. I can tell you for free, if I had a job that paid me, what can I say? Scribble something down. Let's say 100,000 rand a month. 100,000 rand would be roughly 5 billion naira, I think, or more. And if I had that, and I had the nice dress, the nice suit, I had the what do you call it, the corporate speak. Good morning, how are you doing? How's everything? Good. Can I have that report handed over by close of business today? Thank you very much. You best believe I couldn't care who's documented or who's undocumented. I probably work for a business that's serving undocumented people, so you're welcome. I could not be bothered. Okay? It's a question where it's a positive feedback loop where it is the unemployment that leads to the protests. But now the protests, because Those undocumented foreigners were not economically irrelevant. They mattered to the economy. They matter to the economy. They still do. Because who the hell is patronizing people? Or who the hell is being patronized by South Africans? And so because the unemployment is leading to protests, and the protests are now leading to the expulsion or the deportation, self-deportation or otherwise of migrants, documented and undocumented. I'd like to assume that some people are documented in there. The whole thing leads back to a lot more unemployment because some of these people were employers of labor. And so if your boss, who was a migrant, was asked to leave or close his shop or close her shop and go back to her country, pardon my accent. If that was the case, you're out of a job. And if you're out of a job, what do? You protest that you're out of a job because that's what everybody else is protesting for. They're saying they're out of a job, and so you just go along with the flow. You know, join the group. That's the gift that keeps giving. The protest, they're a gift of unemployment, and they keep giving. And so, I think it's the failure of the government to recognize this positive feedback loop that is the problem, and they have to do something about it. And it's not just saying, "Oh, you have the right to protest." It's like, go ahead, break a leg, just don't break anything else. Don't break someone else's leg, break yours if you must. You have the right to protest. You have the right to say, "Well, I don't want to do this anymore. I need people to vacate," although it makes no sense, but I need people to vacate their shop so that I will walk in and take over their business. I can't do the math. They probably did it, so they know what they're talking about. But when you do that, okay, when you do that, you need to be able to realize that you are creating unemployment. You're creating a situation where more South Africans are going to join you in the protest. And that's not a good look. And so the government has to take responsibility. The government of South Africa has to take responsibility for their shortcomings and say, we can do better, and we're going to start by creating jobs. I mean, I heard South Africans generally, they want white collar jobs. And I say, I think it's nice. I think it's nice. You're not going to see me debating that. We'll walk into the office or in the morning, have your tea made, hello, I don't know, secretaries, no offense to, anybody who's watching whose name is Samantha or Cynthia. It's like, welcome to the office, have Cynthia serve you. They usually turn out to be, the secretaries, the names of secretaries that I know, so I apologize, but have them serve you a cup of tea, go through the reports from the previous, the whole nine yards. It's just nice. It's nice to look at, but it's not what gets the economy moving. It's the informal sector that gets the economy moving. It's nice to hold. It's nice to be in. But even then, I don't even think that's where the money is at. But what do I know? And so I expect moving forward that we should hear fewer of these instances where people are being asked to leave their houses, leave their shops, leave their spouses, leave their boutiques, leave their business places. I expect that should come to an end, or that would have come to an end as of June. And I also demand, not that I have the power to anyway, but I insist that the South African government look into its people and actually give them something to work with in terms of welfare, in terms of employment, employable opportunities, and skill training. Maybe they don't got the skill required. Perhaps it is the case that you don't got the skill, or what you do with someone who doesn't have the skill, you upskill them. That's what you do. You don't tell them to you don't toss the skill. Who's going to train you? If you don't have the skill and then the guy who has the skill has to leave, then who's going to train you in the skill? It don't work like that. So I think that has to be fixed. And I think the South African government has to take responsibility for that. Let's talk about the World Cup. Now, you've heard, I hope you have, but you had 10 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 African teams show up in the US plus Mexico plus Canada, depending on what they played. And 9 progressed to the knockout phases. And we're just going to do some statistical comparison. In South America, you had 5 out of 6 teams that qualified for the knockout. And in Europe, football's powerhouse, you had 11 out of 16. So 16 European teams went to the World Cup, and 11 went to the knockout. Now, I'm not sure what the percentages look like, but I think that Africa's percentage is higher. And what that tells us is we're living in some sort of renaissance or naissance, because if you consider renaissance, because it can't be renaissance, it could not be renaissance. We're not rebirthing anything. We weren't born in the first place. And I say that because if you look at the history of the World Cup, at any point in time when you had an African delegation of countries attend or participate, at any point in time only 2 countries made it out of the group stage, or 2 African countries made it out of the group stage. That's like the highest that Africa has had. That was in 2014 and 2022, where we had 2 African countries each make it out of the group stage. Elsewhere, or regardless of whatever time or epoch you're looking at, we had African teams crash out in the first round. And so having 9 out of 10 now is a lot indicative that we're seeing a birth, not a rebirth. Because for a rebirth, it should have been there before. We've never been there. And so we have that many teams, although technically as of the time of this recording, there's been 3 eliminated. Out of the 7, or out of the 9 that have progressed to the knockout phases, 7 still in contention. But never mind, I'm pretty sure no one is expecting to have an African team lift it. I mean, at best, we're looking at Morocco as a dark horse. It's like the true dark horses. They're the only people in red that know what being a dark horse looks like. And attention, in this mail, I'm going to CC Belgium and Turkey. They're the only people who wear red that actually know what the hell it means to be a dark horse. But what I'm trying to explain, or what I'm trying to drive to, is that African football over time is getting better. And the reason, if I may suggest, is that we are actually having a lot more players competing at the highest level. A lot more of our players are exposed. A lot more of our players are playing in competitive leagues. A lot more of our players are used to high pressure situations. A lot more of our players are used to, how do I put it now? They're used to having something on the line, something that actually counts. And it helps to have these players exposed. And when I say that, I don't just mean the players that were born in Africa and then went on to Europe and then played for European teams. That's not what I mean. I mean players that were born in Europe, play in Europe, and maybe it was a case that they weren't so good. They didn't think they'd be selected for their natives, or where they were born, their birth European teams. Maybe they didn't think that. And so they decided to opt for an African team, which is not bad. And so they're bringing all that quality and experience that they had in the training facilities outside of Africa. They're bringing it back. For example, Congo. Out of the delegation of 26, if I'm correct, I think only 6 were born in Congo. Right? Morocco fielded in their 3rd game, or in their 2nd game. They fielded a starting 11, none of whom were born in Morocco. None of whom were born in Morocco. Am I going to refer to Senegal, where more than half of the team, actually in that case, it's a case where they were born there, but also a lot of them were born in France. And a lot of them, they evolved in France, and some in the Premier League as well. And all of this dilly-dallying just points to the fact that it's good to travel. I don't know how else to say it. It is good to travel, right? You may not have been expecting that POV, but I think it's an important one. And I have a lot of cases to back what I'm saying. You have players like Mbappe, players like Olise. There's a million of them that are products of Felix Mecha, for example, from Germany. There's a million of them that are products of parents, of biracial parents, biracial marriages or biracial relationships. And I've always said a biracial relationship is somewhat superior to, a relationship that is comprised of only one race. And that's because look at the average Nigerian, very crafty, right? And so if you intermarry as a Nigerian, you're gonna have a crafty child. I'm happy for you. Cartwheeling celebration. God knows when the last time was that we saw a crafty child. But if you intermarry as a Nigerian with someone from South Sudan, you have a child, or you're likely to have a child who's crafty and very tall. That's like Ibrahimovic on steroids. And regardless of where the child chooses to play, you have a combo that is guaranteed to give that child an advantage. Is give that child an edge. Because if he's standing on the pitch, he has field of vision like no other. It's like, if he's jumping to head the ball, that's if he has to jump in the first place. And he's likely to get it, right? If he's playing in midfield and he's having to read the defensive structure, or if he's playing in offense anyways, or if he's playing in defense, it doesn't matter where he plays. But he's more likely to read the opponent's structure and to adapt their own structure and strategy to counter the opponents effectively. And so that's what I'm saying. It matters when you intermarry. It also matters that you go out to these places and you make sure you spread the word. Never mind the seed. I mean, the word is what births the seed of repentance. Or, commitance. I don't have the word. You understand what I'm trying to say. But if you go out and then you make it clear and know that you have an assignment to make sure that you're bringing the best possible genes back, it's a good deal. It's a very, very good deal. You have players like Iwobi, who play for Nigeria, but who was born in the UK and was raised in the UK and is fit and adapted to a playing style that is international, because all he's known in his life is just, playing at an international standard. And so that's a good thing. That's a very, 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 very good thing. But on the flip side, if you're a country like France, I mean, thank God most European countries are not like France. Because what France does is, it doesn't matter where you're from. Like, you could literally be from Antarctica. The moment you know how to push a ball around, they're drafting you into their team. You're getting called up. And so, unless you're France, or unless you have that child in France, or you're birthing that child with a French citizen, there is a reasonably high chance that child will look around and say, well, it doesn't work out here. And they'll come back to the national team, play for the national team, and get us more countries in knockout phases of subsequent World Cups. I think what comes to mind, an example that comes to mind is this guy, David Alaba. He wanted to play for the Nigerian team. He is such a good player. He's such a solid what I love about him, and he's someone whose game I have tried to study over the years, he's extremely good at reading the defense, or the offense rather, and intercepting passes. That's what he does. He does it so well. And if that transition to the Nigerian national team had gone through, what do you know? The Nigerian captain, Trustekong, is a bloody product of what I'm talking about. I think you get the memo, all right? It's not so much, and that should happen, by the way, a situation where we actually can upgrade our facilities, we can upgrade our training, protocols, we can upgrade our equipment, and bring it up to world standard, and ensure that the players that compete in the local leagues, in the local African leagues, in the CAF, Champions League as well are competing at a level that is equivalent to the ones in South America and Europe and North America and so on and so forth. That we should do. But while waiting for that to happen at the pace at which it has to happen, like it has to happen, but come on, it's not fast food, right? While waiting for that to happen, while waiting for our 3-course, seafood platter to be ready, it is important that we take, we divest into this alternative route or this alternative means of getting quality players, of getting our teams to become a lot more quality and a lot more competitive on a global scale.